Welcome, everybody. My name is Daniel Garcia. I'm the Graduate Program Administrator for the Fashion Master of Arts program, and we're here to give you a quick information session about the program. Just quick thing about the process. We're going to do a quick intro about the program, some information we like you guys to know, be general information that you want to know, and then we'll go straight into basically a Q&A session. So if you have any questions and things like that, feel free to ask them. Feel free to use the chat feature for the questions, and then after we finish the intro, we'll go look through all the questions in there and then answer for everybody to make sure that everybody gets to hear and get their questions answered. And then here joining us, it's Alison Matthews-David. She's the program director for Fashion MMA. So yeah, let's get started. Alison, go ahead, take it away.
Great. Well, super welcome. Thank you for tuning in on a Thursday. What is a Thursday? Pretty much, probably afternoon/evening for most people, maybe night if you're. Hi, Miriam from Berlin. I've met a few of you over email, so if I've met you, welcome back. And I guess, yeah, we usually would have an open house that would be in person in our MA studio, but of course we're not doing that right now, but this actually lets us welcome in more people and answer all your questions and give you a bit of background on the program. Sault Ste. Marie, okay, this is amazing. So welcome, Suchita. Okay, so welcome everyone. I guess what I would just do is talk a little bit about the program, and then Daniel Garcia, who's our wonderful grad program administrator, will tell you a bit about sort of admissions, I think, and and hopefully you will put in an application for our MA program if it's a good fit for you. But what I would say is I'm actually in the process of marking everyone's blog posts right now from my history theory class. I'm a historian and theoretician of fashion. I started out in art history, and then I ended up researching kind of fashion, how it potentially harms human health. Now I'm doing a big project on the relationship between fashion and crime in terms of history, and an exhibition at the Bata Shoe Museum that will open in 2022. So, but we have a really diverse school of fashion that the master's program is hosted in at both the undergraduate and graduate levels. And you know, I'm reading all these blog posts. It's great. People have been commenting on each other's work. People worked on objects either in our fashion research collection, which contains 3,500 objects. We were able to get some people in before lockdown, and so they've done original research. Those ones will be published on the Fashion Research Collection blog, so people will have a publication as of their first semester, which is fantastic. And then other people worked on objects they had access to. So we had just such a great range of objects, from like lucite purses from the 1950s to, you know, late 19th century wedding dresses to a 1960s woman's cravat, like all kinds of great stuff. So I find that very exciting to see what kind of research and writing and creative projects our students put together. That's just like why I love working with MA students. But I guess what I would say about our program is that it is a Master of Arts degree, not a Master of Design. Like, we have an undergraduate program that's a Master of Design degree. And the Master of Arts, there is definitely ample room for creative work, but it's not like you won't come and like necessarily learn how to, you know, make a collection from scratch. That's more what people would be doing in the undergrad. If you have design experience, you can kind of further that. There's a studio workshop course that's mandatory, and that like will, you know, people will get some like practice making things in a kind of theorized way. There, you know, like there's some electives depending on who's coming in. We try to tailor your electives to the interests and backgrounds of the incoming class as much as possible. So for example, this year we had 3 electives on offer. We had fashion and race, fashion and art, fashion and law, so taught by a lawyer. So we try to give a good range. And then we have ethics and sustainability next semester. And then we also have, I'm teaching a redressing crime class. So, you know, because only first years usually take the electives. You can do an internship. It's elective, it's not mandatory, but you can do that at any point throughout your studies. But basically what I would emphasize is, because it's a Master of Arts degree, this is the place to be if you know, want to explore things creatively, potentially, but also if you really want to get deep and dig down in that critical approach to fashion and like kind of examining, you know, kind of the power, the politics, the history, the the theory, the kind of business aspect. Like we're very open to like interdisciplinary work, and we want people from lots of different backgrounds. But if you, I'd say, you know, you're going to come in, you're going to do a lot of reading, writing, research. So that's why it's an MA degree, a Master of Arts, not an MFA or an MDes. So just to kind of clarify that. And yeah, but that said, like we have people from business, we have people from design, graphic design, fine art, English, anthropology, history, like it's all over, psychology. So it's really, really fun, and gender studies, like, so critical race studies, there's like just a huge range of students, and that's what makes it really fun to be in this program and meet everyone and work with people who are really, really enthusiastic about teaching you what they research. So so that's just my brief introduction. It's also, because people are coming in from such diverse backgrounds, it's a 2-year program. It's a 5-semester program. So you do kind of a full year, and then you do through the summer, where you're working on your major research project, which I can talk about more. And then in the second year, you do 2 semesters and you present your major research project at the end. You have this, it's not called a thesis, but you have either a creative piece with a support paper, and that can be film, exhibition, collection, whatever you want. It's a very, very open, you know, in terms of what you produce, or a written major research project, which would be 40 to 60 pages of research and writing. So yeah. So you have a really, and lots of people have taken those projects and done like super exciting things with them. They've turned them into like bigger exhibitions, they've turned them into books or articles, they've turned them into online, you know, pieces. So published them, like they've done lots of different things with them. And we certainly have lots of people going into both, you know, going into various aspects of industry, from like, you know, buying and PR and marketing and all of those things, to, we have had some designers come out who do sustainable collections, for example. What else? And people going on to doctoral work. So yeah, there's lots of opportunities to kind of continue like people are like, which careers do people do? And it's like, it sort of depends what you come in wanting to do, what your background is, what you use your internship for. We have lots of museum internships as well. There's lots of options anyway. And Toronto has lots of great cultural institutions, and and certainly you know, lots of places to do internships as well. So yeah, so that's what I would say to start with.
Excellent, thank you, Alison. And just to touch base a little bit on the admission side of things, I'll just give you a quick overview of that, and then we can get straight into the Q&As. So in terms of admissions, one thing I want to mention at the very beginning is to keep in mind that it's a 2-step process. So you'll submit your application online through the OUAC, which is the Ontario University's Application Center. That basically lets Ryerson know that you want to apply to the program. Then Ryerson will send you an email back with the instructions and a link of how to actually upload your documents. Okay, so it's a 2-step process. Now, the reason why I'm mentioning that is because in step 1, you'll have to include a lot of the information, like, you know, your background, education, stuff like that. But you don't have to really upload a lot of those documents until step 2. So your transcripts, your letter of intent, written statement, all that kind of stuff, that happens in a step 2. So you could start your application at step 1 now if you want to, and then do a step 2 whenever you're ready and you complete all the other documents, right? And you can sort of keep it ongoing until you finish everything. And then in terms of dates, the date to keep in mind would be January 18th, 2021. And that's because that's our first consideration deadline. The program might stay open afterwards, depending on the number of applications we receive, and you could potentially submit stuff afterwards. However, if you submit by the January deadline, we can make sure that you're considered for all the scholarships, all the funding, all the other important stuff that happens early in the term.
I would just say
as you can imagine,
we've had pretty competitive years, so
yeah.
I would say try to get it in as early as you can. This, like, if you're applying for this year, I know you may be thinking about it a bit down the road, but ideally, please, yeah, get it in by that mid-January deadline.
Exactly, yeah, because as you can imagine, there's a lot of applicants, and there's a lot of you know, there's only a few spots
we want to give you scholarship money if you're eligible, obviously. So there is scholarship money for pretty much for domestic applicants for sure, but it depends on which scholarships you're eligible for. International can be a little more complicated because it's university wide, but maybe Daniel can also, if you have questions about that, we can try and answer them as well.
Exactly. And then the second thing about admissions in terms of submit your application, once you get the email from Ryerson, there should be able to look into the portal, and that's where you can check the status of your application. So if you're missing a letter of reference, or if you're missing a document, or if you're missing whatever, the important thing about that is we cannot see the applications until they're complete. So basically, you got to make sure that whatever is on that to-do list or the list of items that you have to submit, everything has been uploaded. If you can't see it, if you're not sure, feel free to email us. I'll put my contact info later on, but make sure that it's complete, because otherwise it just stays in the admissions inbox in waiting, and we don't actually get to see your application. So that's quite important, especially with things like your letters of reference.
That's been
Because we've seen
my
applications.
experience. Like obviously, if the letters of reference often, because they're not under your control, it's them sending them in independently. So make sure your referees know the deadline.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they will get, once you submit your application through the step 1 on the OUAC system, your referees will get an email from Ryerson saying, please submit this reference letter via this email. So you got to make sure you maybe touch base with them after you get the email, maybe a few days afterwards, or make sure you let them know that you may go into the spam box, those kinds of things, right? So very important for you to check up with them, make sure they submitted, and you can always keep track on the portal as well, which is nice.
And I would can I say a word about the portfolio as well?
Yeah.
The writing sample. Okay. So we want a writing sample. It doesn't have to be on fashion. It could be like I think we specify sort of like a 7 to 10 page minimum, like sort of research paper. And yeah, it doesn't have to, we know that not everyone's done fashion in undergrad or has worked on it. So if you have something, great, but just show us your best research and writing in a kind of more academic style. If you have, like, people often, you see there's a portfolio option, but it's really optional. Like if you're don't have creative background or training or like a substantial creative practice, I would say just submit the writing sample. Like that's what we want to see. If you feel that your creative work, whatever that might look like, will strengthen your portfolio, then do submit it, but don't feel obliged. We do not require it. We're perfectly happy to have your writing sample only. So yeah. So don't get daunted by the portfolio option unless you want to submit it.
Exactly. And in terms of the other components, will be sort of your statement of interest. All the guidelines are also on the website. I'll put it on the chat for you guys. But the statement of interest, a 500-word statement, basically just letting us know what motivates you to pursue, fashion, a little bit of your background, your experience, what have you done, future career paths, relevant work that you've done. So basically, we're using it to get to know you a little bit in a one page or basically 500 words or so.
Exactly. And let us know what you are interested in pursuing. Like you may not know yet, but what are some of the questions that interests you? What are you curious about? What would you like to get out of this? So that we have a sense of what your interests are.
Yeah. And the same thing would go for the resume or CV. So this is not the type of resume you would submit for a job, or it'd be more a CV curriculum vitae. So it allows us rather to see all the things you've done. So you can extend a little more, not just the typical one pager. You can go 2, 3, 4, 6 pages if you want to. If you really have done that much, it's great, because it allows us to see everything you've done that's relevant to the program and relevant to fashion, basically.
And if you do have any professional or volunteer experience, we will look at that as well. So feel free to include that.
Excellent. And then the one for the English proficiency requirements is mostly for international students. So for this one, just a couple of things to note is everybody who has not studied in Canada for at least 2 years in undergrad, everybody has to do it. Even if you're in the US or North America, it doesn't matter. You have to submit it. If you have studied more than 2 years in your undergraduate degree in English, you can just submit a letter saying, I've studied in whatever, New York or, Minneapolis, I think it was the other people in here, right? So, and that's enough, but you still have to upload that into the portal. Otherwise, you won't be able to see your application. For everybody else who's international and somewhere else, then there's the English tests, like IELTS or TOEFL and stuff like that. So those you have to complete and then upload to the results to the portal. Or if the examinations can send it directly to Ryerson, that's also an option as well. But you can make sure you send those, because otherwise without those, the applications are not deemed complete. Therefore, we can't see them. So it's very important to check those out. Okay. And yeah, so that's mainly for the admission requirements. And we can touch, if you have any questions, by all means, put them in the chat, we can answer more. But the other thing in terms of funding and things like that, I want to mention just quickly is a lot of the program will try to fund a lot of the students. And this is based just on your admissions application or on competition, basically. So we'll take a look, the review committee will take a look, we'll sort of give a certain amount of money. The funds, they vary between, I think it's $2,000 to about $12,000, depending on the award and your application. We try to fund everybody, but obviously unfortunately we can't fund everybody full tuition, but we'll try to do our best based on what we have. And those are the ones you don't have to really apply for. On top of that, there are other awards that you could sort of apply for. Some of them are listed on the Graduate Studies website, and I'll put a link in a second. But basically,
if you are a domestic student, also, just so you know, if you're a domestic student with an A- or above average in your last 2 years, you will also be eligible for the social science, for a federal grant that we will help you apply for in the fall. So just so you know.
Yeah, so the ones that those ones that will happen. So there's two big ones for that. So there'd be the SSHRC CGSM award, which happens. This will be mostly for the people going from first year going into second year. The deadline for that is December 1st usually. So for that one, it's $17,500, I believe, per year. Just submit an application, basically covers your tuition and gives you a little extra, which is great. But again, you do have need a requirement of A- or higher in your last 2 individual years of study. And we'll calculate that for you and once you're in the program.
If you're eligible, yeah.
If you're eligible, yeah. And then the second one will be an OGS award, the Ontario Graduate Scholarship. And that one's $15,000 a year again. And then same thing, so that one you have to be eligible, and that one will automatically calculate based on your admissions application for the first year, and then we'll do it again for second year when the time comes in. Usually it's around February, March for that one. And then the other ones, like I said, they're posted on the website, and I'll upload the link for you guys in a little bit.
And it's to international funding as well. I mean, it varies year to year, but.
Yeah, so international funding, similar. So some of the OGS positions a few of them are for international. Ryerson has a Ryerson Graduate Scholarship, which is sort of the equivalent of the OGS that can also go into international. Same application process in terms of basically for first year, it's just based on your application. And then there are some other international awards. A lot of them are university-wide, so basically anybody in the university who comes in can apply for them, and those will be listed on that on the website, and I'll put them up here in a second. And then from there may be a couple other sort of small awards within the program. If anything comes up or any, we had donor or something wants to start a scholarship, we'll of course notify students to let them know to apply and when the deadlines are for those kinds of things, right?
Yes, and we're also for some of our top candidates, we've just started offering guaranteed graduate assistantships as well. So if you may be eligible for those as well. So you also get some teaching experience. They're well remunerated. So yeah, so those are something we're moving towards. We can answer all the questions very soon. So there's 1 or 2 in the chat, one of which, there, Daniel's doing the link, giving you the link. When will it release the admission decision? Okay, sure. Should we go through some of the questions now?
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, great. Sure. So where would, just for the IELTS result, where should it be sent? Just to an email address, or do you put it in the portal?
So you'll be requested in the portal. So once you get after the second step, you get the email from Ryerson, there'll be a place there to upload it, like the English requirements, and then you can upload the results directly there. Or great. The letter if you've studied in an English institution.
And what do we need to do for scholarships, especially for PR students? What does PR mean?
I'm assuming permanent residence. Is that correct for everybody?
You don't need to, Daniel can speak to this, but we will allocate the scholarship funding depending on your eligibility when you're admitted. So when we give you, if you're admitted, when you get your offer, we'll tell you what kind of scholarship funding we've been able to give you.
Exactly. So it's so automatic in that sense, yeah. There are some scholarships, outside of the program, like the more general university scholarships, some of them may require may have really specific requirements, like maybe submit a copy of your, how long you've been in Ontario or, those kinds of things. But those will be more specifics into individual scholarships. But for our program ones, it's just fully automatic. We can see that on your application, so you don't have to worry about it for now.
Great. Okay. And when would someone wants, Yin Ying wants to know when the Ryerson would release the admission decisions. if you get it in by the first deadline, I think we've usually gotten out offers by late March, early April.
Yeah, we'll try to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll try to stick to that timeline. Obviously, with COVID, everything's always a bit more complicated now, but we'll still try to get you your decisions as early as possible. And also, is there an interview required? There's no interview process. If you do want to like kind of get in touch a bit more, you can email myself or Daniel as well. But no, there's no interview formally. And then Natasha asks, what kind of contacts do we have in the fashion industry? Will there be good opportunities for networking? What's the success rate? Again, because of COVID, things are a little more complicated, but Ryerson has been teaching fashion at the undergraduate level for 70 years now, and 10 years for the masters. We're celebrating our 10th anniversary this year. And so within Canada and internationally, we have a lot of very good reputation in the fashion industry and pretty good success rates. Networking, I mean, again, like a lot of what you get out of the program is what you put into it, like will help you as much as possible. There's also the fashion zone, which I wanted to speak about. The fashion zone is, we have this sort of whole concept of zone learning. So if you are more interested in like entrepreneurial or business kind of related ventures, you can do a variety of different, like sort of, there are mentorship opportunities at the fashion zone. Quite a few of our students, I think we have 3 second years working with them right now, and our first years want to start a magazine. So they're going to work with the fashion zone on that. So there are opportunities like within Ryerson, and I mean, we don't do like sort of huge networking events, but people have had good luck reaching out for internships or within the industry. What's the success rate? I don't know I don't have stats on the success rate in terms of people finding employment within the fashion industry. Do you have a sense, Daniel?
They do a program review every once in a while. I think every 5-7 years, give or take. So last stats we got, I think we were around the 80% mark. It is hard to gauge in our type of industry, because a lot of those positions may not necessarily be like full-time positions. Some of them are freelancers, some of them are independent, they're doing their own kind of thing. So, but I mean, 80s are like a standard number that they give us in terms of from admissions. But it does depend a little bit. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it depends what part of the industry you want to go into as well, right? So
yeah.
But I think people have done pretty well overall. Okay, a couple more questions. I'm just kind of, this is a really good question from Simon. Would it strengthen your application to have a research ideas in mind prior to applying? Again, yeah, I would say so. I mean, if you have kind of an idea of even if it's not like a fixed idea of like, I know I want to do X, Y, and Z, it helps us to know like the guiding principles of our school, not that you have to do research on one of these things, are around kind of challenging the industry as well. So like thinking about inclusion, sustainability, and decolonization, those are our 3 guiding principles of the school. So, it just helps us to know too, like, is this research that we can support? Is it, do we have, faculty who can, and we do try to do a good job. I have a student who's working on a finance project, and we're working with someone from the Ted Rogers School of Management to be a second reader for her major research project. And we've had people from other disciplines like psychology. We have a creative industries program. Like we bring in other people as well to supervise or to second read usually where necessary. But yeah, I think about what you want to research and have a look at the profiles of the faculty, and if there's anyone in particular you think their work would resonate with you and that you would like to work with, by all means include that in your statement of interest, because it shows us that you've done your research too. So that's part of it. It shows that you're a good researcher. Would you say the vast majority receive funding? Yes, definitely. Again, we've been able to give some funding to everyone in the past. I'm hoping that will continue. Our internship students, who finds the internships? You work with the internship coordinator, and I mean, it helps if you have an idea of kind of what you want to do, but we'll help set that up for you, on our end, of course, and do like there's paperwork and there's a formal enrollment in the course and everything. For a permanent resident applicant, what are the requirements? I think there's a link to what the requirements are, but if there's a specific requirement you have a question about, maybe you could
just feel free to let us know if there's a specific question. But I think the application process will be the same. I think when you apply on the OUAC system, you'll basically pick one category or the other. but the information, the requirements, all that kind of stuff is pretty much the same that you have to submit and upload to the document. I will upload a link right now. It's for the with more information for just more for international applicants. He has everything like work permits and stuff like that. We as the program can't really give you that much information in that because that's a little bit outside of our scope. But the link I just put in there will give you some more information for like work permits and how to apply. And then you can actually set up a meeting with someone in there as well for if you have more questions for that kind of stuff.
For sure. And these are great questions. Thank you, everyone. Honestly, this is really, I love this. This chat function is really helpful for that. But can the program be completed online? Now, this is something we don't know. This is a really good question. Right now, this first year has been online. But again, we don't, I mean, one hopes we'll be back in person next September, but we don't, we probably, if we are in person, we would not have an online option just because for certain courses like the studio workshop course, you want to be in person. Like it's a very, because it's a graduate program, a lot of what happens, like we've done our best online and, you know, but I think we all want to be in the, you know, interacting in person ideally. So probably not, but the question about in terms of like work while working full time, there are students who work full time while doing it if they have some flexibility in their schedules. We can also, there is no kind of formal part-time option, but we do have people who've had things come up, or we can tailor the program so that it might take a little bit longer, like you might be able to do it in 3 years. Like we can make that work if that's something you want. But there's no sort of formal part-time program. But in terms of like the course load, right now the seminars are 3-hour slots. So you'd be taking usually 3 of those. So 9 hours of kind of in-person or online like class time plus 2 hours of graduate seminar every 2 weeks. But you know, you'd be obviously preparing and doing assignments and all of that on top of it. So it's a bit less, if you like, face time than say an undergraduate program. And a lot of people, I mean, yeah, it depends on what kind of job you have, I would say, and how flexible it is. Mobility funding in a COVID-free world. For field work in other countries, we've had people go to Ghana and Nigeria to study like emerging designers. People have done field work in other countries, but they've found it like through like the grad student union. They found it through grants. We don't have like, we definitely fund people to for registration in conferences, and we help with conference travel. So, you know, that's something, there are various funds you can apply to for matching funding. We do support students to go present their work. But in terms of research, it's sort of, we'll do our best to help you with it, but it's also part of your own initiative.
Yeah, can I jump in there? There
Yeah,
is a couple of funding areas, like I said, the student union does have, but the graduate studies, the School of Graduate Studies, so the Yates School of Graduate Studies, which we are part of as well, they also have some funding for conferences, some for travel, some for and they vary from like $500 to, I think the biggest is like $7,000 depending on what it is. So again, on that list that's on that link, sorry, that's on the chat, you'll be able to see some of those. So there are some opportunities, and then Ryerson itself has also a few other ones, and some of the zones may have also some funding depending on what your project is.
Yeah, and I mean, to that effect too, like, I mean, you mentioned sort of networking events. We do, like, we've been giving people tickets. We just got tickets for anyone who wanted to go to the Vogue symposium, the Teen Vogue symposium. We have lots of guest speakers and invite, like, people we invite. We're gonna have, there are panels, there are like workshops. So there are lots of other events that we've managed to continue online. But, you know, we encourage students to professionalize themselves as well. So yeah. For the writing sample, can I submit a part of my undergraduate dissertation, or does it have to be a full seminar paper? There's no maximum. Yeah, of course, you can totally submit. I mean, as long as it's more than 7 pages, then that's totally fine. Like, I mean, we understand everyone's under a lot of time pressure now. So just, you know, submit whatever. Like, I just would say, you know, don't submit a couple of like sort of newspaper articles, or, you know what I mean? Like if you're a journalist or something like that, like submit us a proper like piece of research, I suppose, that you've written up. So no, but no maximum. We, you know, obviously if you have a 50-page dissertation, that's great too. We may not read every single word, but but it gives us a sense of what you've done. So okay, information. Okay, my portfolio is in a different language, Spanish. Do you need me to translate it? I'll print it. Yeah, I think if there's writing component, probably a translation would be would be good, or at least an explanation of kind of what the writing is in English, like a kind of overview, because I mean, obviously we do our best, and I try to find out if you know, if someone on our faculty like I read French, but and we do have other languages, but yeah, try to do, I mean, if you have a good just writing sample in English, I would include that. And maybe, I don't know about the portfolio, but you can email me and we can talk about it, Maria Elena. Oh, Natasha asks, do we need basic design, sewing, drawing skills for this program? No. No, I mean, they're a bonus, right? It's great if you have them, but again, we do not expect you to come in with those. We have had students audit undergraduate courses. You're allowed to do that. So we have had people like wanting to learn a sort of a more skills-based thing, and it's at the instructor's discretion, but usually we'll try and help you set that up too. But you don't have to come in with any of that. You know, we've had, you know, people come in with a completely, like, again, no experience creatively, and that's totally fine. And I mean, I'd say it's good to be open-minded to experimenting and exploring. But you know, don't worry if you can't can't do any of this. Even the studio workshop course is aimed at like everyone, even if you don't have that background. So blogs, okay. Or photography, graphic design work. Yes, I think we've created slightly more kind of detailed guidelines for the portfolio. So I think, Daniel, those are up on the website, right?
Yep.
In terms of what you can submit. But yes, you can definitely include a mix of your strongest work in your portfolio. It doesn't have to be just one type of work. But there is like a format. I think we're asking for a PDF. And anyway, you can check the website for that. Do people have any other? Okay, good question. When do you need to decide your final research project topic? Okay, that's a really good question, because I can give you a little of a sense of the timeline of how it works. So in the first semester, you would be taking a research methods course. You'll take, which will look at like social science, humanities, arts-based research. So a range of different kind of approaches you can have to research methods, you know, including a lot of guest speakers. You'll take history theory, so you'll get an overview of the history, and it's mostly focused on history in the first semester. The second semester is kind of classic fashion theory, and then the studio workshop course. So those are the kind of mandatory classes, and you'd take an elective. And at the end of your, like in January of your first year, you submit a very preliminary proposal that's like sort of 1 to 2 pages of what you're thinking of working on and how you want to approach it, because you've taken the research methods class. Like, are you going to use mixed methods? Are you going to interview people? Are you going to make something? Are you going to research in an archive or whatever? You know, like it's kind of asking you to think, are you going to mix those all up? So you do that proposal, and then by February, you'll have your supervisor assigned. And you'll be working with that supervisor for the rest of the program. You'll get a second reader as well, who can also give you feedback. And then, yeah, basically, like most people, you'll do a more formal proposal in the summer, work on, you know, exploring that if you need to go through a research ethics process. And then your second year is you know, you'll take fewer courses. Maybe you'll still have 1 or 2 electives left, but you'll essentially be working on your major research project with your supervisor's help. And Simon asks if references from the Ryerson like faculty, yeah, acceptable for sure. That's a really good question, because ideally, if you have 2 academic references, fantastic. I would try to have as academic references as possible. But again, if you have very substantial like professional experience or volunteer experience, you could also include at least 1 reference from someone who supervised you, but not just like, this person's a great employee. Like, make sure they speak to your actual skills and qualities that would be relevant in this program. Like, just, you can tell them kind of what we're looking for. But yeah, references from any institution are fine. Postgraduate work permit. I don't know. Daniel, you maybe can answer that.
What was it? So for the postgraduate work permit, you'll have to visit that link for the international. I think I put on the chat before. I think I mean, it's not my area of expertise, but I think it's usually over 1 year, because it's a 5-term program. I think you will be eligible. after you complete the program, but did you have to apply sometime in the second year? Because some of the requirements, you have to be in Ontario studying for a certain amount of time, and then after that time you can apply. I believe you should be fine with this program, because I know I've seen it happen with 1-year programs, and we're a 5-term program, so it's a year and a half. So you should be fine. But again, I would point you towards the Ryerson International guideline, just in case, because again, that's a little bit outside of the areas that we do. So I don't want to give you wrong information.
Okay. Yes, Natasha asks, I've been graduated for over 4 years. Would academic references still be relevant? Yes, definitely. I mean, but you may have a professional reference as well. And, we have lots of people, some people come straight through from their undergrad, but many people return after like time away from their studies or time working, or, so we love having students we also love different ways of learning and being in the world. So like, if you come to it with that experience of other areas, that's actually a plus for us, I think, too. Not that we don't want people to come straight through either, but yeah, we have a lot of people. We welcome you coming back to study even after a longer time, and we'll help you get back into it. So yeah, I think that definitely it would still be relevant. And Alexandre asks, can we tell you a bit about fashion studies? I put the link. We have a center that has just changed its name to the Center for Fashion. It's a research center, and it's called the Center for Fashion and Systemic Change, to recognize kind of thinking about change in terms of like ecology and environment, but also social justice and diversity and inclusion and all of those things. And so as part of that center, we have a journal that's an open access journal that hosts creative work as well, called Fashion Studies. I co-edited it. We just launched our 3rd issue. It's open access, so you can go have a look. And we've always had MA interns on it who also get a chance to submit their work or do interviews or things like that as part of the journal. So that's another opportunity. Thanks for that. But yeah, have a look. We have it's quite I think it's really nicely put together. And then we also have the Fashion Zone, as I mentioned. I think they have a website, and then the Fashion Research Collection. Those are all other things that we have on offer, and that we've had master's students involved with as well.
Yeah. And just to touch base a little more on that zone learning at Ryerson, there's the Fashion Zone, of course, but there's also like 9 other different zones as well that you could, they're all incubators of companies in different areas that you could, ideas, and you can either be a person comes in with an idea and they want to grow it, or you could actually come in with your skills and help somebody else grow their idea. Or you can just be there as volunteer and help out with different things. So, and again, some other students have basically literally created their jobs for themselves when they finish the program. And then there's a variety of different things, and they like to do a lot of combination of different disciplines. So it's not just fashion. Sometimes you have some fashion, some history, some science, some MBA people. So it just combine everybody together to
digital
make
media,
better.
like
digital
there's
media.
lots of opportunities in our zone, zone learning for sure.
And I just want to also mention for whoever was asking about the postgraduate work permit, I'm going to put a link in the chat right now with more information where you can actually make an appointment with someone to actually talk about that in more specific details for that.
Does anyone have any other questions? It can be just even something basic, or yeah, open to any other questions. Yeah, Simon, yeah.
Go for it.
I was going to type it, but I figured it would just be...
Yeah, sure, just unmute.
So I was just wondering, because I'm coming from a background of performance and design within performance.
Great.
And specifically looking at the CV, my CV contains a lot of lists of I was this position on this piece of work on these dates.
Right.
Would that be an acceptable form of CV, or would it be better to go to a traditional format of a resume?
I mean, one thing that I will say about our fashion program is that we are very open to a diversity of formats. Even in terms of things like citations, we're not like everybody has to cite an APA. It's are you working in psychology? Use APA. Are you writing a history thesis? Use MLA, or so I'd say the same of CVs. Try and just make it accessible and readable, because the one other thing I would advise, when you're applying, obviously we're looking at a lot of applications. So the kind of clearer you can be about what you've done and kind of concise to a certain extent, the better. But yeah, there's no, I mean, as Daniel was saying, it's not doesn't have to be a kind of, you know, I'd send an employer this. Everybody's coming from a different place. So yeah, just like, again, I'd say just like flag up your best work, and yeah, and it's okay to have that. There's no like page limit for CVs. So, or volunteer opportunities, definitely. Oh yeah, have we had success organizing internships with Toronto Fashion Week or Toronto International Film Festival? I don't know that anyone's ever wanted to. I know people have volunteered with the film festival and Toronto Fashion Week. People have even gone to New York Fashion Week as well as interns and things like that. So yeah, it's really, I mean, the sky's the limit, to be honest. Like right now we have people, even with COVID, we've had people working for Harry Rosen, for example, which is a menswear brand. We've had been able to place people who've done things with you know, jewelry brands, Canadian retailers, international stuff too. But yeah, I mean, it's pretty open as to what you can do. You can also do a research assistantship as an internship as well, if like you really want to go into research. And there is also, if you're really interested in teaching, there are free teaching seminars for graduate students as well, to like kind of help you get good skills in your teaching as well. But yeah, we would look at everything. I mean, volunteer opportunities, that's great. And resume and not CV. Yeah, you know, honestly, the other thing I'll say about the CV is it's going to give us a picture of what you've done, but we also are very, very aware that not everyone has the same opportunities as well in terms of their CV. So, you know, we try to, you know, keep that in mind, because, you know, just because someone's had tons of international experience somewhere, like it doesn't mean that they're a better candidate than someone who has done local volunteer opportunities or even retail jobs. Like obviously we know. So so just, you know, yeah, don't worry too much about that. Like it's a chance for you to, you know, kind of show us what your interests are and what your background is. But like I would say, if you're going to focus on getting something perfect, do it in your statement of intent. That's the kind of one that will really, we'll read that first, because we want to know what you've done and like what you want to do. So, and you know, so that's, I would say, focus on the statement of intent. Is there a limit to portfolio size or number of works? I think there is this year. I asked my colleague who teaches Studio Workshop to do revised guidelines for the portfolio. So I think they're up there now, right, Daniel?
Yeah, between 5 and 7 pieces.
Thank you. Yes, 5 and 7 pieces. All right. So yes, so we'll look, you know, give us your best stuff. Not a question, but it's been very exciting and informed. Oh, thank you. Yes, we're looking forward to your application. Okay. Yes, Simon. Okay, Daniel's answered. Any other questions or thoughts? Feel free to unmute yourself too. We'd happy to hear from you. I guess actually I'll say one more thing. Just that that I think like it's been amazing to me as grad program director. Like I love this role. But also just to see what students have done to create community and friendships, and they really bond. Because one of the things that they said the first time is like, wow, I'm in this program where I can just talk about fashion all the time. It's kind of awesome. And they, you know, they set up a Facebook group right away. We're having a holiday party as well with prizes, and like we do our best, like whatever the environment, to create like a kind of supportive and constructive and friendly and welcoming community. So that sounds a bit cheesy maybe, but I actually really believe that that's such an important part of the program. And like I know that, I mean, again, I didn't have the stats on you know what you know, kind of what our employment rate is, but know for sure that like the students who come here, they stay friends for life, and they network. This is also your network, right? Like you will have this network of other people who are going out into different parts of the fashion world, and you will stay in touch with them and they will help you. So so that's also, it's not just kind of, yes, there's those industry contacts, but and contacts with our alumni as well. Obviously we have more and more, as the program's like now we're 10 years, we have more and more people out there that I connect people with. But you know, it's also sort of like up to you to create these communities within the program as well that will carry you forward. So 4 years of work experience, taking to help break into the, yeah, I think you could. I definitely, people you know, use it for all different kinds of things. But if there's an aspect of the like if you're not in the fashion industry at the moment, a lot of people have used it to transition into various things, but into the industry as well. So yeah, I would say you can, again, it's sort of what you make of it as well. But I would say as a caveat, like if you just want to work in the industry only, like then you might be better off doing like a business degree or something like that. But if you really want to understand, and I think this is really important for the fashion industry now, I would say a lot of we're aware of the problems that the fashion industry has and is creating environmentally, socially, you know, like all of the issues with the fashion industry. If you are going into the industry, we kind of hope you will want to go into it to change it and to kind of, or into I mean, certainly there are academic paths as well, but like we don't, I mean, you can use it for whatever you want, but you will have a much better understanding of all of the ramifications of fashion and how it's a force in the world if you could take this program and then become a better, you know, person in the industry. That's kind of what we hope will happen, but that's one of the reasons we founded it. But we love it when people want to go into this because they want to teach, because they want to keep doing research in this area. I mean, fashion's still a very much a growing kind of field in terms of research. So there's lots of room to do your own original work. So, yeah.
And if you're curious about to see what other people have done in the past in the program, you can actually access some of the past MRPs through the Ryerson Library. So I'll actually post the link in the chat now.
Yeah, people access
it's a long link, but that way it gives you the access to like 114 past theses or MRPs that you can actually review and take a look what they're, you know, read them fully if you want to, or just to get an idea. They're all they're publicly available for you guys to check it out.
Yeah, I mean, as you'll see, no two projects are alike. So that's kind of exciting. We like that. But yeah, that's a great, yeah, go to the link if you want to get a sense of what some of the MRPs are like. And as I say, they're very open in terms of, you know, people don't come in always knowing whether they want to do a creative project of some sort or a written project. And you don't have to decide that right away either. Great. Okay. Well, unless anyone has other questions, feel free to reach out. I'll put in my email. I'm in the middle of marking right now, but I love to hear from you. So, and I have heard from some of you already, which is great. That's my email. Yeah, and definitely the one other thing I would recommend that you do is follow the School of Fashion social media, which I believe is, I'm gonna double check, but they're very active on social media, and like you can kind of get it. Yeah, it's just called at Ryerson Fashion, and this is for the school as a whole. I believe it's the same for Twitter. I'm not 100% sure, but there's always, like, they always feature graduates, they feature events. There's a Black Students Association now as well. There's a beading circle for Indigenous beading practice that anyone can join. Like, there's lots of things going on and lots of events. So so just if you want to get a sense of kind of the school vibe as a whole, I would recommend following on social media as well. So, yeah.
Excellent. So it's like going once, going twice. No more questions? All right. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Hopefully it was informative. If you do have any questions, our email contacts are there. Please reach out anytime. I'll be happy to help you out. So thank you very much.
You're very welcome, everyone. Yeah, thanks for coming and taking your time. And yeah, and if you have more administrative questions, like about admissions, you can ask Daniel. If you have questions about, you know, other aspects, or you want to meet a current student, then email me and I'll do my best. So, but yeah, look forward to your applications.